wasn't sure there was going to be a sparring match agreement that we'll spar for a while. I wasn't sure. I was honest about it. That's why he said he's going to go rounds. I wasn't sure if there was an understanding that, we'll play a little bit and then we'll get a little more and, whatever. So that was part of it.
Acknowledge Jake has had double jaw surgery, 4 plates, 8 screws in his face, and everybody is just kind of breezing past that like it's no big deal. But I'm looking further into this because that's no easy surgery, and I'm starting to ask the question, is this the beginning of the end of Jake Paul's boxing career?
As his brother, I was just shocked. I'm in the hospital with the guy, and he's like, yo, can you make this TikTok? Can you film this for me? He's like laughing and having a good time.
Does not have any agenda against Anthony Joshua, because it feels to me like that fight, I before the fight, I was refusing to accept the principle that this fight could be scripted.
The boxing community has erupted, with some saying Anthony Joshua should face consequences for the injuries Jake Paul sustained in the ring. Experts criticized AJ as Jake suffered serious damage, including jaw fractures that required surgery and screws. Many condemned the mismatch, arguing Joshua's power and aggression exceeded safe limits. The fight left both fans and professionals stunned by the severity of the damage, reigniting debates about fighter safety and proper matchmaking in high-profile bouts.
Away from the power, you could call it running, and you'll be right. You can also say it's smart for a guy Jake's size and understanding that AJ is a fucking monster. It's also smart to fight that way. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It was not.
Analysts Brian Campbell and Shaka Majui offered an in-depth breakdown of Jake Paul's fight against Anthony Joshua, examining both his strategy and the physical toll he endured. They noted that Joshua's power caused considerable damage, including strikes that ultimately required Paul to have jaw surgery. To manage the danger, Paul relied heavily on movement and evasive tactics, constantly circling the ring to avoid being cornered. While this defensive approach wasn't aggressive, it allowed him to last longer than many anticipated against such a formidable opponent. Campbell and Majui emphasized that Paul's focus on footwork and ring awareness helped conserve energy and mitigate some of the damage, though Joshua's overwhelming strength still caused visible injuries. The analyst highlighted that Paul's tactics underscored the importance of defensive planning in boxing, while also illustrating the risks fighters face when matched against significantly superior opponents in high-stakes bouts.
Could this be the end for him in terms of what he's doing in the boxing ring?
Listen, so long as people will tune in and so long as Jake Paul is paid by Netflix or any broadcaster to air his fights, we're going to see this continue. And Jake Paul knows his business model, right? Now, this deviated, this AJ fight, which came together kind of last minute after the Tank Davis fight fell apart. But we know Jake Paul's MO here. It's find the most popular guy with the most physical disadvantages for me to fight. And Jake Paul has the benefit that he's turned himself into a villain, or in the pro wrestling circles, a heel. People tune in to watch. We did not tune into this fight to see competitive boxing. Most of us tuned in because we thought, here's Anthony Joshua. Here's a 2-time unified heavyweight champion, a guy who physically just overwhelms Jake Paul. And we're finally going to get what Tyron Woodley and Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz were not physically fit, whether it be through their size, experience, or age, to do, and that is knock out Jake Paul. And so, because I don't really feel like we got that satisfying comeuppance that a lot of people have been waiting for, it kind of gives Jake Paul a little bit of mystique, I'd almost say, to still try and string this along. Now, I don't know in terms, he says he wants to be cruiserweight champion. I'm not quite sure what the competitive road there is, because let's make no mistake, the reason this fight lasted as long as it did is because Jake Paul focused exclusively on being elusive. He did his best, and kudos to him, right? He did a great job of not getting cornered. He was always on the gas until the gas sort of fell out from underneath him. And so I don't quite know, short of leveraging his popularity, how he's going to get to that title shot if he's not actually going to fight, like really fight an elite boxer. But if he's looking to make money, there's the KSI fight out there, there's the Tommy Fury rematch. There is ways for Jake Paul to sustain.
UFC champion Michael Bisping reacted strongly to Jake Paul's decisive loss against Anthony Joshua, calling it a masterclass in professional boxing. He highlighted just how outmatched Paul was, emphasizing the accuracy and power of Joshua's punches. AJ's combinations and uppercuts left Paul with almost no room to maneuver, exposing gaps in both his defense and overall strategy. Bisping noted that the broken jaw and repeated punishment Paul suffered were the result of facing a far bigger, stronger, and more experienced opponents, something Paul had never encountered at this level. He added that Paul's bravado and promotional hype couldn't prepare him for the technical and physical demands of fighting an elite heavyweight. While Paul managed to survive the rounds, the damage and dominance displayed by Joshua clearly illustrated the gap between professional elite fighters and celebrity crossover boxers. Bisping concluded that the fight served as a stark lesson in respect, preparation, and skill within the sport.
In my humble opinion, because I'm a big Anthony Joshua fan. Of course, I've been a supporter for the longest time. A rather lackluster, unmotivated Anthony Joshua that didn't look like he was being particularly nasty, right? Yeah, a lot of the time he was out of range, and okay, it is hard to land a shot on someone that's backing up and moving away the whole time. And there was a lot of times where he had him in the corner and he could have thrown a shot. And sometimes he was telegraphing his shots. And anytime he did go in to throw a punch, as I said before, Jake Paul would shoot in and turn it into a wrestling match. And even when he wasn't shooting in, he was clinching a lot. This is boxing, it's not MMA as we know. The referee should have done a much better job of getting in there and separating them much, much faster. As I say, it was the 6th round. I think it was the 4th round he got dropped twice. In the 5th round he got through it. In the 6th round, caught him with the jab, and a glancing right hook. He goes down, and that was that. That was all she wrote, right? I did a live. There was about 9,000 people watching at one point. Nobody was particularly enjoying the matchup. Listen, okay? I respect both men. I respect anyone really that steps into the ring, okay? And certainly going up against Anthony Joshua, that was a tall task, okay? You know, metaphorically and figuratively, right? It was a tall task. It was a big job. It was a tough opponent. It was a mismatch, and it was, right? Jake Paul never worried Anthony Joshua once. He never rung his bell. He never caused any damage. He never had him worried. He never did anything. It wasn't a fight. It was a display of how long can Jake Paul last? Can he run away long enough to...
Following the blockbuster bout between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua, reports suggested both fighters earned around $92 million each, making it one of the most lucrative fights in boxing history, streamed worldwide on Netflix. However, Joshua's earnings were heavily reduced by taxes. As a UK resident competing in the United States, he faced both US federal taxes and UK international tax obligations, potentially taking approximately $66 million from his payout. This meant his actual take-home was far below the headline figure. In contrast, Jake Paul, being based in the US, didn't have to contend with the extra UK tax burden, allowing him to retain a larger share of his earnings despite losing the fight. The situation highlights how taxation can dramatically impact high-profile international boxing purses, and serves as a reminder that reported earnings often differ significantly from the money fighters ultimately take home.
Yeah, Ngannou, he's got balls. Ngannou's got balls, man. He went out there and he tried to fight, tried to win. And Jake Paul didn't try to win at any point during the fight. He was just trying to survive. I think that's actually ultimately going to hurt him with boxing fans.
What do you think, Paulie? I mean, you talked about the in and out kind of style, kind of hits and runs, and you said that A, it runs out your legs. He was exhausted a couple rounds into the fight, and B, it only saved him for so long.
He doesn't have the boxing skills to box on the move anyway. Once I saw the big ring, I knew he was going to run for his life. When you're that much of a novice, which obviously it's not even an insult to him, it's just lack of experience. But when you're that much of a novice, you either know how to run for your life or fight all out. You don't have that in between yet. You haven't developed enough of that in between boxing acumen to really pull that off. And so what ends up happening? You're either going to fight your ass off and you'll last a minute. Chris, you're being generous. Round 2, he would have got knocked out in round 1 if he would have fought. But at least he would have fought. He would have gotten the respect of the people and more importantly, the boxing community instead of these clowns that follow him and are still defending him. You know, now what happens is you didn't get any respect as a fighter. You didn't get any respect as a fighter because you didn't try to fight at all. If he would have, I was watching that through 2-3 rounds. I'm thinking to myself, this guy would do this for 8 rounds if he can. If he can do this for 8 rounds, absolutely not fight at all, absolutely not engage a single time in 8 rounds, he will actually do this, and he'll do it shamelessly, and that's the problem. That's the problem. The shamelessness of his approach to the fight. You're gonna be a fighter, then don't make an ass out of the whole sport, out of the whole business, and out of yourself first and foremost. Because in the end, what happens? You got his jaw broke anyway. So what ends up happening? What's the worst that's gonna happen? You're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get knocked out. You got hurt and you got knocked out anyway. But you just prolonged the inevitable, and you got no respect out of it now. Because nobody's respecting that kind of performance. Nobody's respecting a performance where you were totally content to steal money from everyone by running for your life for 8 rounds. And if you could have not engaged a single time in 8 rounds, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to pull that off.
That wraps up today's video. Stay tuned for more updates. See you next time.